I want to talk about two subjects in this, so I'll have two talks actually within an hour. One has to do with the massive rise in the buying of property. Minimum price is 5 million, but it can be in the billions. In about 100 countries, with buyers that range from Turkmenistan and Kazakhstani investors and governments to very, very rich families. So it's quite a breadth of investors and buyers. And the thing that has struck me the most about all of this is that there is no strong utility function. Many of those buildings that are being bought are underused. So it's not the need to own a building in London, in Paris, in Miami, wherever. It is more the notion of it's a good investment. But is it a good investment if they're underused? And so that leads you to the next question. So the good investment is marked by what? And I think, this is my hypothesis, that what we're seeing is the buying of urban land. How do you buy urban land? The easiest way is to buy a building on top of it. Because once you actually want to buy urban land, you enter into very different types of legal regimes. They're often very old laws, very complicated and very difficult to buy. So that is sort of the hypothesis, and I want to develop it a bit in this presentation. Neither can one say that there is a need for more floor area, either for whether it is for business purposes or for residential purposes. A lot of the very chic towers that have been built in Manhattan, in London, especially in those two places, are absolutely like 20% occupation. Something else is happening, in other words. And the other talk that I want to give in my 1 hour is about the emergence of a new type of migrant, a migrant for whom there is no law. Let us remember we have national law, which is often very bad law, but still it exists, for immigration. Most countries have some version of an immigration law. So when the migrant, the regular migrant, who often leaves a place behind, often plans on going back, is going to be sending money back, a very reasonable actor actually. And almost nobody migrates in our world. Let's remember that. The total number of migrants, regular migrants, is like 300 million or something like that. That's very low compared to the total population. So it takes courage to be a migrant. This is very important. So when she appears in front of at the border, so to say, whether that is an airport or, she can be recognized in the law. And then there is a refugee. Now that's UNHCR, refugee law. That is a law made after World War II. It has been revised, but right now it does not capture what is the main form of war, which is asymmetric war. Regular army goes to war, the enemy is an irregular combatant. Those are wars without end. There is no armistice that can be signed. So the United States has been trying to get out of Iraq for a very long time. It's a war now that has lasted more than 11 years. Remember, both wars in Europe, though each lasted 5 years. After 5 years, the hegemon said, okay, let's have an armistice. Let's go back to business. That is not an option now. Now, there is a third subject. So the existing laws are problematic. They don't capture the present properly. But the third subject is a subject that is a refugee of a certain kind of, and I say it in quotation marks, economic development. The expansion of plantation agriculture, which kills the land and means that you are expelling smallholders who know how to keep the land alive, and they have across the generations for centuries. Plantation agriculture kills the land in about 50 or 70 years at most. The expansion of mining, the new type of mining that is related to the 7 items in the Mendeleev table, which have to do with our electronic revolution. The Nestle's, Coca-Cola's, and 25 other major bottlers who go around the world using huge amounts of land just to grab water. And when they're done extracting all the water, they leave, and they leave behind dead land. The expansion of cities, which throws out every year hundreds of thousands of small holders. Put it all together, and we have a third subject, migrating subject, who is a refugee of these modes of economic development. And when she appears at our borders, she's invisible to the law. Because we don't, in the GDP per capita measures of those countries, when you replace lots of small farms with a big plantation, the GDP per capita grows. So we measure this type of development positively, including when Coca-Cola, buys a big piece of land, GDP grows. So everything works against making this subject, making the condition that is producing this third subject, recognizable, because it's seen as a positive. So I want to touch a bit on that. I mean, changing mindsets, the racisms that abound, whether you are a refugee, whether you are an immigrant, or whether you are this third subject, that's a tough one. I also always like to remind us all that when Baron von Haussmann was redoing Paris, he needed more workers. He was very careful not to offend the French Catholic workers by bringing in Italian Catholics, because the French workers had decided that all those Italian workers in France at that time were no good. So he brought in from the north German Catholics and Belgian Catholics. And guess what? When those workers arrived, the French workers said, they are the wrong Catholics. That gives you an idea as to what we're speaking about. Right now, it takes the form of an existing other religion, of existing other phenotypes. When that very strong presences were not there, they would find a way, because this is an impulse. It's an impulse to keep the outsider out, even if she's your cousin. Same phenotype. So today, I always like to remind people of this. So today we think that the problem is the other, right? The wrong religion, the wrong... But it's just more complex than that. And I do not see an easy end to this type of, I don't know what it is, I don't know what name to give it, because saying racism can take very specific forms. I don't want to confuse this. This is like a very core thing about what I don't know, I have trouble checking. And so if you're curious, many young people love connecting with Muslims or people from other religions because it's an adventure, it's exciting. So in that mindset, that's the first good step, to think, my God, they're just like me, Whereas that other mindset, which is a majority of people, oh no, I don't know. Even if they are, your neighbor who is the same religion, the same phenotype. So it is an issue, but we have to work at it. We have too much information now, and we have, in so many countries, mixities of religions. There was a time when everything was far more homogeneous. So that there always are going to be people who are witnesses to the fact that, they're just like us, they're humans. That's our race, that's our tribe, human. And I do think that the new generations, there are more and more people who think of it as adventure. There is more intermarriage. There isn't a lot, but there is. So it is quite possible that the people who are still talking about it all belong to an older generation, those who are resistant, and that the new generations, as they become the big talkers and the big politicians, that they will change something. I mean, it's a bit of an optimistic, but there is that possibility.